My lord, I misled you when I came to your palace. I said that I was here to take you back home to your father, and that is true. But there is a purpose. You are to show that you are a real man, my lord, by returning to the kingdom and marrying the Princess Augusta of Hesse, who arrives in 3 days' time. And you must make your decision. And the prince said, so what life is there for me? You tell your fairy stories, and I cannot see myself in your fairy stories. And the only fairy story you can tell me that is mine turns me into a monster. So how do I go back and marry a princess of Hesse and be me? Put me into your fairy story and give me a life that makes sense to me, that I can be a real man. Very well, my lord. Poor man, our last stone. Once upon a time, said the storyteller, for this is a traditional story, my lord, that we all know, there was a prince, and the prince said, the stone you hold is for poverty, a poor man. Why do you speak of a prince? And the storyteller said, oh, there are many kinds of poverty, my lord, not all of them to do with worldly wealth. Once there was a prince who lived in a kingdom not far from here. And when he grew old enough, his father wanted him to go into the army and lead the armies into battle. And the prince said, Father, I'm not the killing kind. But he did his duty and he went to war. His father wanted him to be an ambassador to a far-off kingdom. And he said to his father, Father, I am not the diplomatic kind, and I cannot abide Ferrero Rocher. But he did his duty, and he was an ambassador in a far-off kingdom. And then his father said, and now, son, it is time for you to get married. And he said to his father, Father, I am not the marrying kind. But the pressure was too great and he had to marry. And so it was arranged there would be 3 balls. 1, 2, 3. 3 nights, one after the other. And at the end of the 3rd night, the prince had no choice. He had to choose a bride. And so the first ball night came. And the prince danced with the ladies of the court. And he was bored talking to them. And the clock reached 11 o'clock, and suddenly the room split, and a vision appeared at the top of the stairs coming into the ballroom. A vision in deep blue silk, the colour of midnight, of beautiful stars, like so many constellations across the dress, in such a beautiful and flattering cut. At the neck were jewels, sapphires, and on the girl's feet, tiny, dainty shoes, each one embedded with sapphires. And everybody's breath was held. And the prince bowed to her, and he danced with her for 45 minutes and would accept no other partner. But at 11:45, when she said that she was thirsty and he would go and get her a drink, he went and fetched her a glass of fruit cup, and when he came back, she'd gone. And although he searched, he could not find her, even though he searched until the clock struck 12. The next night, another ball. 11 o'clock, the prince is bored, but then there's a hush and there's a vision of loveliness, a gold dress, bugle beads of gold rustling as the girl walks across the room. On her head, a golden tiara. On her feet, shoes set with the rarest and purest yellow diamonds. And he dances with her for 45 minutes, and then she's very thirsty. And Prince is being slow to learn lessons. The prince goes to get a drink for her, and when he comes back, she's gone. even though he looks for her until the clock strikes 12. And the next night, a ball, dancing, boredom, 11 o'clock, a dress, as if it is made of solid pearl, and yet it moves like water, and in the candlelight, a million rainbows dance of every single movement. A tiara for a princess of the sea, and on her feet, slippers of glass, of purest crystal that somehow are flexible and enable her to move and dance. And they dance for 45 minutes. And at 11:45, she is thirsty, and he holds on. And for 15 minutes he dances with her as she tries to pull from him, until eventually the clock starts to strike 12 and she is successful. She runs from him. She runs down the hall. He follows her. She runs down the palace steps and he goes after her, but she is already getting into her carriage as the last strokes of 12 are striking. But there on the steps is a shoe, a slipper of purest crystal that somehow retains its flexibility that crystal has never had before. Now, this shoe, this crystal shoe, is so delicate. Only the woman that he has danced with could fit this shoe, and so he makes a proclamation. And that proclamation is,
whoever fits the shoe will be my wife.
and so the prince, with a retinue of servants, travels the kingdom, and women all over the kingdom try on the shoe, and none of their feet fit the shoe, until he comes to one final house where there are two sisters, and the two sisters try on the shoe. And to his surprise, the first sister tries on the shoe, and the shoe fits her foot. Unfortunately, that does involve rather a lot of blood. And once they have removed the shoe from her foot and cleaned it, the second sister tries. Once more, there's some unpleasantness, a lot of blood, which will result in a decided limp for the rest of her life. And there is no one else, no other woman in the house. Oh, there's the servant girl. She sleeps downstairs in the kitchen in the cinders. And of course, we know the story. The foot fits her shoe. And so she marries her Prince Charming. And I'm not going to say they lived happily ever after, for I do not know what their marriage was like. Well, I'm going to take a guess then. I'm going to take a guess that she married someone who could be a good friend to her and could give her very good fashion advice. And he married a woman that he could talk to, and he could dress up, and could be his beard. And that's the story of Cinderella. And is it going to be your story, my lord? At this point, I'm actually not going to tell you the end of the story. No. I'm going to leave it for you. And as you go home tonight, I want you just to think what you think the end of the story should be in traditional story worlds. Should he go back and marry the princess? Should he stay in the palace of Sans Souci and be a real man in his own understanding of what a real man would be? Well, how about a third option? That he stays in the palace of Sans Souci being the man he knows he is, and that the storyteller realises that he knows more about what it is to be a real man than the storyteller ever did, and that he stays in the palace of Sans Souci too. And perhaps it's actually those two who could live happily ever after.